to you. So what we're going to talk about this morning is something I think is really incredibly important, and it just kind of like dawned on me this morning how important it was. I had some really cool talks with, I'm doing this because it's freezing in Florida right now. It's so cold. Can't even let your hands out. But I was having conversations with people yesterday because they wanted to hear, like my story, like my full on story, right? And as I went through telling the story, it kind of like I realized different points in the story where I'm like, I don't know that everybody would have made that decision. And then as I kind of sat in it last night, I was like, but why did I, if not everybody would do that, what is the difference, right? And so what I want to talk about today is the freedom mindset, right? And there's, when you look up mindset, you're going to usually find two different categories, and one is going to be fixed and one is going to be a growth mindset, right? A fixed and a growth mindset. That's kind of what most people have tagged onto. And those are that's a very real thing, right? It's a very real thing. Let's try to get this normalized here. But what I want to talk about today is the freedom mindset, the mindset where you realize that you deserve freedom, right? You realize that people don't really have control over you, not the way they need for you to believe that they do, right? And that goes with companies, corporations, that sort of thing. So as I was going through my story, I worked in restaurants. I don't know if you guys know about this, but I worked in restaurants for 14 years, right? So I worked as a server and a bartender for 14 years, for a really long time, which is anybody that has come out of the service industry, so many props to you, because that's the hardest. I guess I don't have other things to compare it to. That's hard work though. It's really, really hard work. And to be able to make somebody happy that is hangry and their food isn't ready yet or whatever, right? That is a skill set, and being able to anticipate needs. I think some of the best entrepreneurs actually come out of the service industry, because when you can anticipate needs, you are already ahead of 90% of the business owners out there, because you care about the people that are in front of you, and you're like, okay, well, what are they going to need next? What do they need next? What do they need next, right? A good server is going to be somebody that brings you a drink before you need it, right? Your drink's down to here. You haven't made the server call, the slurpy slurp, right? Because you got to the bottom of your drink. You don't even get to that point. You're right here and the server's coming back with another one. That's anticipating needs. That's, oh, I know you're going to need this. Let me go ahead and get this for you, right? Or it's things like that. That actually creates a really good business owner. Just by nature it does. So anybody, if you're watching this and you're in food and service, or you're in hospitality in some way, and you're like, I love what you're talking about, but I don't know if I could do that. You did do that. I did that, right? You can absolutely do this. This is not, it was whenever I was in restaurants, and at the end of my, time in restaurants, I started to think most people in restaurants, we don't start out thinking that it's going to be a lifetime gig. We don't think we're going to be lifers. But whenever you're in it, time goes by, and it just keeps going by. And we're not developing I wasn't anyway at that time, developing any other skill sets or anything. And so time just kept going by, and I was developing into a lifer. Where you see the older people that are still working in restaurants, and you're just like, I don't want to do that. I don't know if my body can handle that. That's crazy, because even as a young person, I would come home after, spending 12 hours on my feet that day, and my feet felt like bloody stumps, right? Like they hurt so bad. And I just can't even imagine being older and in that situation. And basically, it was one day where I wasn't fed. I always liked my jobs, because I like people. And so I always liked my jobs, but there was one day where I had sort of like this epiphany, where it's almost like you have this grandiose clarity in life. We have moments of it. At least I have had moments of it. I believe that everybody probably has moments of clarity, right? I love when they last longer than moments. But I had this moment of clarity where I was like, shoot, you need to develop some skill sets, lady. Like you need to, if you want things to change, you need to be a catalyst for some change. It's not, nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's gonna, like come fix everything for you. This is going to take your doing, and so it was in that moment that I think I had my very first freedom mindset moment where I was like, I don't have to be stuck here. Which before, you guys, was not even something I could think about. It wasn't even crossing my mind. But when it did, I couldn't not see it. You know how there are some things that you either learn or you develop or you hear, and you're forever changed because of a new knowledge point, because of a new thing. So like in HBR, when I teach you guys how to like grow the 7 income streams, there's a lot of people that are like, whoa, like it's a lot easier than what people think it's going to be. And they're just like, whoa. And when you know that, you can't not know it, right? Like it's like, oh, there's this freedom available that you didn't realize was there before. But now that you know it's there, you can't not see it, right? And so that was my very first freedom moment where I was like, now freedom comes at a cost. The cost for this freedom is that you have to learn some things. You have to choose to double down on yourself. You have to choose to believe in yourself, right? You have to choose to give yourself what you need to be able to take the steps. And of course, this is not me saying, don't take this out of context and think, well, she just doesn't rely on God for anything. You know I rely on God for everything. You have to be able to own the reality you sit in and own that it doesn't own you. And that company doesn't own you. And that any of that situation doesn't own you. You can be thankful to different situations for what they brought you through. You can be thankful for that. But to stay stuck in it is a choice and will be detrimental, right? So the freedom mindset that I'm really talking about here is to be able to say like, okay, that was cool and all. I need to be able to do something different. I need to be able to make a choice for myself. At that point, I didn't have a family and all of that, right? But I need to be able to make a choice for myself, to be better. And for us, especially as followers of Christ, right? For us, to choose to be better is everything. Because if we just sit in where we currently are, and the reason I'm being ambiguous in my language right now is because everyone's in different situations. And so I don't want to call out specific ones because I want you to think, what is my situation I'm in that I'm allowing myself to be stuck, and I'm not allowing myself to say, hey, I don't have to be here, right? Everybody's got different situations. And so I'm going to be ambiguous about it because I want it to hit you where it's supposed to hit you. Okay. Does that make sense? And so I want it with this freedom mindset that I'm talking about. We have to be able to just look at our wherever we're at, and we need to say, where am I stuck? Where do I feel like I have handcuffs on? Where do I feel like I can't stretch out and be everything I am? That was it. Where do I feel like I can't stretch out and be everything I am? Because as a server, I got to be able to have one-on-one contact with people. I got to love on people on a daily basis. I got to take care of them and their families. And for me, if you know me, you know that fills me up, right? But it wasn't everything that I am. And so whenever I quit that and I went to corporate world, I got to serve in a different way. And I developed my skill sets. I developed the things that I use today, every day, right? I developed my being able to teach, my being able to conversationally walk people through, here's how you do this, here's how you do this, making it relatively easy for people or simple for people, right? That's where I developed that, because I was on the phone, I couldn't even see people, but I was walking them through doing a thing, but I couldn't even see them. And so it really honed in my skill set of being able to teach and walk through. I was going to need that for my next level. And then my next level was when I quit my job, because I got a video of my daughter taking her first steps. And that was my next freedom point. My next freedom point was that I was going through, I picked up my skill set, and my next freedom point, and I believe God walks us through these, guys. I don't think this is us just meandering. There's a reason it's all so perfect, and it's because He is so perfect. But when I got to the part where I got a video of Nora taking her first steps and everything crashed, and that was my next freedom point. That was my next, Martha, you gotta go. It's time. It's time to be fully everything in the way you were designed to be fully everything. You picked up your tools, you picked up what you needed, and now go and be fully everything. You guys, there should never be people holding you back. There should never be jobs, companies, corporations, none of it should be holding you back from fully expressing who you are designed to be here and now in this place. Tomorrow is promised to no one. The reason that I'm being so just like anchored in about this today is because I think people need to hear it. Because usually whenever I talk about, building your income from home and usually it's like, okay, well, quit your job if you want to quit your job and do, it's just, what are the things that people typically want to do? And so I address that. Well, if you want to homeschool, that's what we have chosen to do, right? Like if you want to do that, then you'll be able to do that and that sort of thing. But I don't ever address what it takes to be able to say, I'm done. I refuse to be tied up anymore. And I now step out into exactly what I was designed to do. And I'm going to say, guys, that whenever I stepped out into that, God has caught me at every rung along the way. He has prepared the way, and then He walks me through it. And then as I go through the different steps, I learn different things that I need to know, but all along the way, we are taken care of. If you're walking in his will for your life, if you're walking in his design for your life, which is what he puts on your heart, but if you're not afraid and you say, I accept freedom, I accept full freedom and everything that comes with it. Full freedom means full surrender. You will find all of your freedom inside of your surrender. All of it. It didn't make sense for me to quit my job at GoDaddy. It didn't make sense. 2 families, our family and Mike's parents living in our house, just bought a really expensive house. I held the insurance. I was the only one in the house really working. Not that nobody was deadbeats. Nobody was deadbeats. Mike's parents are older. And Mike, I had brought home from work because I was making so much money that it was okay to bring him home. We had a pet walk. I'm not going to go down this, but we had a pet walking company, pet sitting, pet walking, whatever, company whenever we were in Iowa, which is still around. But anyway, and he was able to help be at home with Nora and kind of do that. But it was mainly my income was running things. And I got the video of Nora taking her very first steps, and that's where I had the poof, poof, poof. Everything just crumbled. I think when it's time for you to move, God makes you very uncomfortable. You get squeezed into moving. It gets very uncomfortable to stay where you are. So if you're feeling uncomfortable in where you are, maybe it's time to go. Maybe it's time to take the next step and to move on. Because whenever I quit, I didn't have a job. I didn't have anything. I surrendered. I jumped out the proverbial window and I let God be my safety net. It's all surrender, guys. All of the impact you want to have in this world, all of the feeling like you're giving back, to the world. All of those things that we require as human beings, all of that is on the other side of surrender. All of it is. And so I'm going to wrap this up with the freedom mindset that I'm talking about is those moments. You hit these moments and you're like, this doesn't feel right anymore. I don't think this is right anymore. And then to be able to make the choice and say, okay, I'm going to go ahead and take the jump. I'm going to go ahead and do the thing. I'm going to go ahead and I'm seeking freedom here. And I'm going to surrender in order to seek freedom here. That is growth. So when you hear growth mindset and fixed mindset, yes, those are definitive terms. But how do you get to growth? Through freedom, through surrender. I love you guys. I'll see you again later. Bye-bye.